Hey there from Music Direct and musicdirect.com on Facebook, and also joining us via Klipsch's social media account on their Facebook page. I'm brand ambassador Bess Navarra for Music Direct here in Chicago. Glad you could join us for this edition of Conversations from the Listening Room. It's a weekly series of programs that we've been putting together during this very unusual time when everybody had to think, ooh, how am I going to spend time? How am I going to deal with things while I'm in quarantine or while I'm at home? Well, interestingly enough, our folks at Music Direct, specifically my colleague Josh Bizarre, found ways to really make the conversation happen through a series of articles that he posts on our Music Direct homepage under News, in which you get the full scoop on life in that unusual time. And along the way, what happens as you read those articles, you get to understand the needs of music in our life. How are we able to think back in our memories of what we've been doing to get to this place where we're buying all these great records, or if we are looking at digital devices for pure enjoyment on streaming, whether it's through services like Tidal or Qobuz, or just thinking about playing something, anything, just so that they can enjoy it on some good equipment. Well, that's been the scope of our conversation series. We've been asking many of our brand partners to come on board and join with us and share some of their terrific stories along the way. Pretty much in 2018, I believe it was, Music Direct began a partnership with one of the most iconic speaker brands on the market today, Klipsch. Its story, of course, we really don't need to go back any further. If you want to look back at 1931-32, when a young student named Paul Klipsch started to work around the theories of audio and sound quality. By the mid-1940s, he was basically one of the fathers of ushering in the world of high-fidelity audio with the creation of the now iconic Klipschhorn loudspeaker. Fast forward to the 2000s and the 21st century, the Klipsch Group is being more of an immersive experience and showing people that music is truly a powerful medium when played through their products. And the person most responsible for doing some of that is basically the equal of my world as a brand evangelist, as a brand ambassador, but he's also the senior VP for sales and international business relationships with Klipsch Group. He is, of course, Mark Casavant, and he joins us from his home in sunny Florida. Don't you look nice and tanned, you son of a gun?
Okay, I'm chuckling a little bit because um, and my title is similar to yours. It's brand and business development, but I'm in the Florida room, but I'm in Indianapolis.
Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. Yeah, it's a state away. Whatever. Anyway,
What's funny is, I am a salesman at heart, and as is our CEO, Paul Jacobs. I mean, we both started with this company in '91, and in the sales department. And you have that always in your heart, about telling people what your passion is. I mean, that's what sales is. Convincing people of what you love and what impresses you, and then you kind of just spread it to others. And that's actually what I think being a brand ambassador is too. So, and you do that very well, Bess.
Thank you. It took 25 years to get to this title, so I'm pretty happy about that. But my career also dates back to like the Pleistocene age, the 1980s. But that's another chapter, perhaps, for my autobiography. Anyway, for our friends watching today on both our Music Direct and Klipsch channels, we have an interesting challenge in the form of a little contest during the course of this broadcast. Tell them what they could win, Mark.
Well, Bess, the lucky winner will receive a very desirable little product that we're making called the Heritage Groove. It's about this big, and it's got the nice real wood and fabric, and it's a really fantastic natural sounding Bluetooth speaker. So it'll complement anybody who has hi-fi gear. They have their La Scalas, they have their home theater. This is something for somebody who has everything already. Everyone can use a nice little really quality Bluetooth speaker. So that's what we have.
Well, there we go. And in order for you to qualify for this, obviously you're watching, we appreciate it. But if you have a question for either myself or the guest, and it is hand selected by our team at Klipsch who is monitoring this and acting as our judges. Thank you very much, because I can only do so many things with buttons and things and whatnot and doing these, self-produced broadcasts. You could be that winner. So get ready to toss your hat into the ring, and good luck to those people. The winner will be announced by Mr. Casavant towards the end of this broadcast. So be ready for it, people. So anyway, first things first, thanks for being here. And thanks for being with us in suburban Indianapolis. Whatever, okay? Thank God we did our... It's so nice that we did our pre-production here, before going on the air. Heavens. Let's talk about you, because this program is really all about us as human beings, as people who identify with the industry as a whole. But people like you have a great story that got you to where you are at Klipsch. And it begins with you as a teenager in suburban Orlando and Cocoa Beach, if I'm remembering the area.
Yeah.
What put Mark Casavant on the roadmap to enjoying music on your terms?
Well, it would start with my parents. They always had music playing, and my dad, being a World War II veteran, he also being a musician, a trumpet player, and he always had a love of classical and big band, and we had jazz playing, and some of the more popular music, Sinatra, all those guys. My mom loved Dean Martin, and so always music playing. So Dad had a music system, and then my brother and I, we got into the drums. I was probably 12. And 4 years apart, so he got into it also, and then of course, being in the 80s, actually late 70s and 80s, my siblings, they were into some cutting edge music, before anyone knew really, I mean, on a popular level, who Santana was, or my brother also loved Zeppelin, and my sister had Frampton before he was really huge. I mean, the music exposure from my siblings really helped a lot, and just loving that music. But then, then the gear, the hi-fi gear that my brother would get. And then of course I was so competitive, just, okay, well, I gotta mow some more lawns, work some extra hours at the family restaurant, and I gotta save up because I want some better gear, and, but it did ultimately kind of cement in my probably my path, what direction I would take when I was in Orlando, probably with my brothers, just making a road trip over there to some music stores, musical instrument stores, as well as the music stores, audio stores. And there was a dealer there, and I was collecting all the literature. I actually picked up a couple mobile fidelity discs at the record store nearby in the mall. And I came into the audio store, and I had this stuff under my arm, and I was grabbing literature and trying to educate myself on hi-fi gear. And he noticed what I had under my arm. He's like, "What do you got there?" And I'm like, "Well, I got this and this." And I had Bolero, on a MoFi disc. And he's like, "That's a powerful piece of music." And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about it." I think he was blown away that a 14-year-old kid had classical under his arm, and a decent quality mobile fidelity original master recording disc. That shocked him, I think. He said, "Well, have you ever heard?" He had a question for me. He said, "Have you? You're into audio, right?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I love it. I want to do this and this." He said, "Have you ever heard the Klipsch?" And I'm like, "What's the Klipsch?" And then he sat me down in front of Klipsch horns, and I was looking at them, and I couldn't understand them. I'm just looking at a giant slab of wood and this very large cabinet. And so anyway, long story short, he played 1812, Tchaikovsky, that segment, the very dynamic segment. And I went in there, as the smart, I know everything teenager, to leaving the store like a little dog with its tail between its legs, humbled, like, I don't know anything. I've got a lot to learn. And it blew me away. And it made a deep impression on me. And I, even asked my brother, I'm like, do you have any idea what this stuff is? And he's like, I've heard of it. I don't know if I've actually heard it. I'm like, well, I heard it. And I didn't even know this was possible with a home system audio reproduction. I didn't know it was possible to be in front of a symphony orchestra or, be in the presence of a real music performance. And so um, that that changed the course of my, I went to school, I got a business degree, and all my buddies were looking into, the typical careers, and I was just like, I don't think that I'm not cut out for banking or insurance or, this or that. I get home and I'm, you know, month or two after graduation, my dad goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll be at the restaurant this afternoon." He's like, "You're not working at the restaurant. You pursue a career. You need to get on your own path." And he said, "Go down to the local hi-fi store and apply. That's what you love. Get a job doing that." I'm like, "Okay." And then I sent out the letters. I sent a letter to Klipsch. I sent a letter to a lot of American hi-fi companies. And then I got the Dear John, we'll keep your resume on hold, for a year. And my dad goes, "Just get some more experience, get down there." So the local dealer was a Klipsch dealer. And then I worked for another independent dealer in the area, my buddy Roland, who had a music store, a record and CD store. So we had the music side, then we started up an audio side. And it was an extension of another custom operation in Merritt Island. And we had a couple locations in Brevard County. So we had Klipsch. So I already had the Klipsch bug, and now I could actually sell it and demonstrate it. And Bess, you and I get along great. I mean, I just, when I'm up there with you guys, I mean, I feel like I'm with family because you guys get it. The guy who gave me the demo when I was a kid, I took that to heart, and I believe that one demonstration, well done, can absolutely impact a person and maybe what they do next.
Yeah.
I mean, their path. It did that for me, and I strive to do that every time. And you know, um, we have a lot of music fanatics in the company, of course, and we know our fans are that way too. And we have to take it to a pretty extreme level to make sure that our customers are happy here. We have to go up to here and go a little extreme. But it all comes down to the music. It always does. And of course we can have long conversations about gear and bands and all that, and it could go for hours. I mean, it's just a topic that for me, it never gets old.
Yeah, no, I'm with you in so many ways in terms of the spirit of that, and I will say that from my touch point in first hearing a Klipsch loudspeaker, which is ironic because you would think I would have family members who might have bought it and so forth. I was raised on Altec Lansing speakers initially as a child with my father's Macintosh gear, but it wasn't until roughly the late 1980s, early 1990s when I was jockeying around from retailer to retailer that I stumbled across a job opening at a place called Columbia Audio Video, which had a store in suburban Chicago as well as one in Chicago in the Tony neighborhood of Lincoln Park. And I walked in there and I was, immediately hired because I had enough experience. There was growth potential and all that other fun stuff. But I needed to know all the products that were in there. And sure enough, in the room was a set of Klipsch Fortes, I believe it was. And
Mm-hmm.
I just sat there and, hooked it up to some equipment and whatnot. Next thing you know, I'm going, I'm coming home to old Maryland, Dad. Oh my God, what is this? And it reset the attitudes of what it is that we do when we're listening to music and how it shapes you, how it moves you, but most importantly, how a product like the Klipsch loudspeakers gave me life and reminded me there is more than just other speaker designs that are out there. Which given the scope that Music Direct is carrying the line now, most notably the Heritage series, has really created a unique sense of community with our customers who talk to us about the line, who ask us if it's efficient with their setup, what can we do to make it really, stand out. Plus, the most recent innovations of the stuff is also what makes me enjoy their stuff. So, as my mom said to me during my college graduation some years ago, that's my son, the late bloomer. So, that true story. But that's what I think is. I think that's really dynamic. So here we are. It's 2020. You're at Klipsch now. You've been doing some phenomenal projects. We got to know each other during the CES show, as you know, with our first broadcast under my role as brand ambassador. But now our relationship has become more cemented, more dynamic. I think the question I want to ask here is Klipsch's innovations, even for a speaker line as tremendously classic as the Heritage Series, hasn't lost sight of the prize on giving people the sound quality that you and I so crave. And I also know that it doesn't take very much to power a Klipsch. So let's talk first about the technology innovations in the time frame under the Klipsch Group. What has Klipsch done to really imbue the spirit of that sound quality that Paul started decades ago?
Well, I think the secret there is Paul Klipsch. If you search on YouTube, you can find some classic footage captured by a dear friend, Kevin Harmon, who is on the board of our historical society, our Klipsch Heritage Museum down in Hope, Arkansas. He and Matt Summers are really helping carry on the legacy with Jim Hunter and Richard Groves. And I'm mentioning these people because these are people who are so passionate today about continuing the legacy. And then, of course, Roy Delgado, our preeminent engineer in Hope, who worked with Paul Klipsch for many years. And then, so the reason I bring up Paul and the YouTube videos is you may get to know his personality then. And through the years, he was never really satisfied. He was always interested in evolving the products. The Klipsch horn did establish his reputation and legacy for the company and our design philosophy, our approach: high efficiency, low distortion, resulting in fantastic dynamic range, and then controlled directivity, the benefits of that for creating a lifelike soundstage, and then having nice, smooth response in your actual living room, not just an anechoic test chamber. All these things combining to produce that dynamic, alive sound that Klipsch is very well known for. Paul, he wanted to evolve the products and actually implement advancements as he could. And then, of course, with the improvements in materials in 2020, materials and technology, magnet structures, crossover networks, all of the resources at our disposal now, Roy is able to actually implement new technology in the Heritage line. When I say new technology, I'm talking about new approaches to phase plug design, diaphragm materials that actually take these products to that next level. So the AK6 Klipsch horn is an example. The new Cornwalls and Heresies, we have a new phase plug on the high frequency driver that really gives a nice wider dispersion pattern to the ultra high frequencies, which typically collapse. Even from a dome tweeter, they become very narrow and laser beam like, 50 kilohertz response, but it's like a laser. If you move your head, you're going to miss it. But these new developments give you such a beautiful, consistent power response that absolutely makes the speakers disappear. You can't locate them. You just really hear placement of musicians now. So what I'm getting at is that, Paul Klipsch, we believe, would be happy with these continuing developments in this line, which is so prized and precious to us. This legendary heritage line that we are actually further developing. So rarely do you have new tech and a heritage product combined, and some of the most advanced stuff that we do as well. As you know, we're one of the few that utilize advanced horn design just for all the benefits therein. But it's something to be heard rather than spoken about. I would just say that, with this continuing evolution, we're excited. That's the word that really, it's the word that describes the sound, and then this kind of discovery that is still happening with products that are, decades in the running. The Klipsch horn, over 73 years continuous production. The La Scalas were developed in the 60s, the Heresy in the 50s, the Cornwall. And today people are hearing them, realizing, oh my goodness, this level of sound quality, this level of dynamic range has been available for a long time. You and I have talked about analog technology, digital technology. So digital technology has come along and is like risen to the occasion of delivering the dynamic range that these speakers have always been capable of. It's just kind of like oh my goodness, that's kind of a crazy thing to think about, that these speakers they've been ready for digital dynamic range before anybody really knew what digital recording was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of
Yeah.
funny? So we have this legacy, but we guard it like Fort Knox. I mean, it's precious to us, and we're very careful with, a founding father's legacy that we are in charge of. We're stewards of this legacy, and we often talk about, we've been around for over 7 decades. We're going to be around for another 7 decades because, as far as we know, laws of physics haven't changed. They won't change. We need to deliver this alive sound for generations to come. And vinyl coming back, vinyl, it's awesome. We're happy about that. But people can listen to their different recordings and hear the difference in analog, the best analog, and best digital versions. So we're all about the source technology. We love it. We love great electronics and amplifiers in front of our speakers, but we are very excited again about the continuing evolution of these products and what Roy has done in Hope. He's very humble, by the way, about, hey, it's not about me, it's about Paul Klipsch. And I find myself being a little bit of a voice box for Roy, because there's some things he just won't say. He can be a little shy about this stuff, but he's also a very bold and strong-headed engineer. Exactly what we need to get this stuff done, to get it through. And
My
then he will often
recollection.
say,
I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
please.
I was just going to say, he will often say, this is what Paul really, he wanted this. We're like, okay, well, who's going to dispute that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
In meeting him at the now famous Vegas get together, where for some reason you guys pulled me into the corner. One of my colleagues from our sister company, MoFi Electronics, came in and said, "Hey, can you set up the turntable for these guys?" I'm like, "What?" so meeting Roy as we sat there, and I double checked the turntable to make sure that it was fully centered and had all the bells and whistles of our MoFi turntable decks at the time. He was like, "Boy, this really sounds good," and I'm going, "You're kidding." This is your stuff, man. And I think that's what really leads the charge as to the emotions and the craftsmanship of a Klipsch product as it's developed over there in Hope, and certainly to the products that, as you described in their timelines, have really kept pace with this generation. You talk about the vinyl lovers. You mentioned your first MoFi record as a kid, but now look at us now. You're turning me on to some artists that I have not heard before. I'm picking up vinyl copies of their stuff on a regular basis. We're also sharing our stories about streaming, but the cogency of that in a Klipsch speaker remains unfazed. And when you look back at how Paul ushered in the era of high fidelity, we knew there was going to be bigger bandwidths for us to play with. It came in the form of open reel. It came into the form of long playing records. The inclusion of different stylus types, and then of course, as you and I intimated earlier, the arrival of the CD. I mean, dynamic range is everything. But yet, in the case of a Klipsch loudspeaker, for those who've never listened to one, and you're certainly welcome to audition one when you call us at Music Direct, you will find that there is this magic, there is this glow, there is this unshakable feeling that people get in listening to to a product like that. So I'm with you 110% on that. It must give you goosebumps every time you watch another person like me sit there and look at it and going, "Hi."
Well, it's funny because when we were up there with your team, I knew I had to get, you guys excited. And it's tricky, not easy to get industry veterans excited about a product line maybe they've heard about, but, they've heard and seen everything. And they're like, okay, what's this guy going to bring to the fray here, with these fairly large speakers. As I'm talking to you, I'm looking at my Fortes. I'm in the room with my Fortes. But and then I'm pretty adamant about, let's turn down the lights, and if we see some tubes glowing, that's okay. But let's just forget about what is in front of us visually and just imagine this musical performance. And then being able to turn down the lights and give you guys a fun experience with, I think it was Stanton Moore, and just some of the recordings that we had fun listening to, and then before you know it, we're talking about music and we're not talking about gear. And that's a good sign. I, you were asking about my teenage years, and I guess I knew then that I had a little issue, an obsession with it, because, I was like calculating how many more lawns, I need more customers for lawns to cut. And then I need hours at the restaurant. What am I going to do I got to buy a CD player. So I made that commitment that summer. It was 82, 83 in that range. I $15.99. I'm trying to remember how much those Mobile Fidelity original master recordings cost. Some of them were $20.
They weren't
pretty
cheap.
Expensive. Yeah, I
They
mean,
weren't cheap.
Dark Side of the Moon. You got to have all these things. Alan Parsons. Just those early original master recording, those OMR discs, which the vinyl, you could see through it. It was that pure vinyl. And then I was like, well, gosh, Thriller's out and Toto 4, and I got to get a CD player. So if my mom knew what I spent on my first CD player that summer, she would have killed me. I spent $1,000 on a CD player, and I didn't admit it. I did not admit that even to my bro. I was like, I got a CD player. Well, don't worry about it. I'm not telling anybody what I spent on this. But I do remember that when I first hit play, I was just like, oh my gosh, and then I was like, I was almost shaking. I was so nervous because I spent how much on this thing? It better work, and then the upgrade path. Oh, then the next gen players, oversampling, all these, the evolution of digital, which was rapid in the 80s, all the new format. I mean, all the new technologies. So the reason I bring that up is that I knew, I mean, every last dime went into my audio gear. So it was at that point, I think, I may not have known it then, but maybe my parents did. They encouraged me to pursue the audio industry, and I did out of college. And when the offer came from Klipsch for the Southeast territory, I was like, this is a company I'm going to hitch a wagon to. It's such a unique approach, and the history and just how fun it is to demonstrate. As a dealer, it was just fun to demonstrate Klipsch, and it was always fun to get a reaction out of customers. I mean, I actually enjoyed that process. Sometimes when a salesperson's not having fun, they don't enjoy their job. I mean, there are all kinds of industries where you see a salesperson, I don't think they're enjoying what they do. I did, and I was like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? I mean, you've heard that said, and I think it's true for you and all of us who are in this industry. Some of the veterans who we're still in this industry, maybe we could have made more money doing something else, but you know what? You got to say to yourself, quality of life. Being in the audio business has been fun. It's a job. It's still work, to get it done, to get these products delivered to the marketplace. But it's a good gig. And all of our customers who own Klipsch, I mean, we are so cognizant of how this is a big part of their life. It's just like me, I always have music playing. It is a huge part of my life. Music is so unifying, and it brings us together, and we know that, and we take it very seriously, even though we have fun, and we make it kind of lighthearted, and we try to do, but we also take it very seriously because it is a very important aspect of life, especially now in these times, crazy times. We hopefully are taking a little more time to listen to music and maybe relax a little bit, lighten the load of our everyday worries or cares, and then maybe even share more music with our family.
Yeah, that I in recent weeks, and I said this in a previous episode with one of our other guests, that to be able to balance my work life with music professionally is usually the stuff of where I'm trying to find that one track that I have to just make sure that it's ready for my client when he or she or they come into our listening rooms in Chicago when we were open, and just wow the daylights out of them. And it was always a great ritual to be able to do that. But what differentiate that, as you sort of alluded to in your own way, is we eat, sleep, soak this as a career. But when we are off after hours, we want to be able to sit down in front of, whether it's a Cornwall, whether it's a Heresy or otherwise, or our home stereo system that we've worked so hard to create in our own kind of musical way, our own connectivity, and play that one record that said, "Oh God, I remember when," or "I love this song because this one lyric just threw me as it was centered into my face." That's really where I think in this unusual time that I've been able to explore that kind of connectivity. Thank heavens we have the skill set, you and I, professionally, to be able to understand what we're doing when we're doing this. It almost becomes like a shopping cart to us. We're just like, I know I want this, I know I want that. But to someone who's never listened to a Klipsch loudspeaker, to the person who is the dealer, whether it's Music Direct, musicdirect.com, or any authorized Klipsch dealer who's a heritage dealer in general, because we're talking two-channel today, is the one key requirement that I always have whenever I talk to my people is, are you ready to be in your driver's seat and to feel the music, because that's what I'm trying to do for you. That's really what happens. And I hope that in those times, those customers of our own are able to really synthesize that energy and make it their own. And I think that's a brilliant thought. You ready for some tech talk? A little?
Yeah, I'm getting some. Brittany is sending me some questions,
Oh,
so
good.
I probably have to review a couple of these. Um, okay, I got to
What
open
lovely
these.
viewer is asking the kick-ass question and is eligible for a prize?
Okay, so you have some on your end, so I think these are from the Klipsch page.
Yeah,
So go ahead and fire away.
I just basically have a comment, in terms of someone recommending the Groove wireless speaker, which, as you indicated, is a really, really killer product. If you want, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, Bluetooth is always that little monkey in the room for high-end audio people, and I think even though Klipsch has already previously explored it, I think a bit of a renewal needs to be put into order in that situation. What is it about the speaker and Bluetooth in general?
Well, everyone's using this. This is their music source, right?
Right.
And we have our other ancillary products. Our sound bars, have the Bluetooth, more advanced Bluetooth connectivity, as well as the Groove. And even though you may have a house full of audio gear, to have, you can't put this on speakerphone. You need something that you can take with you, and it sounds better. And there are a lot of Bluetooth products out there, but we always have kind of taken the approach of, to do another plastic little box, we don't want to do that. Let's do something that has some craftsmanship in it that is worthy of the Klipsch name, which these little guys have. The wood, the fabric, the controls, the simple elegance, really, of the little Bluetooth speaker. And it's designed to have natural sound. You don't want the treble and bass bump to overwhelm what should sound like natural vocals. And then, of course, if you're listening to a little bit of jazz, I personally, I want to hear the hi-hats, so it better have some high frequency extension. The kick drum should sound natural and tight. I tend to criticize with drums, because I'm a drummer, but amateur, never quit my day job, so um, there are a lot of great there are a lot of good musicians out there that still, it's a struggle. So I kind of and they're in the company too. We got a lot of musicians who, love to do that, but you know, the audio gig is the one to go with. But so this is a natural sounding Bluetooth speaker with quality and craftsmanship. That's all I can to sum it up. Uh, we've had some other pretty interesting questions, but I'll let you get into yours. And hey,
Go ahead and choose away, because I'm trying to sift through my little database here to see which one would be of interest to everyone. What about on your end?
this is a good question. When speaking with someone new about audio equipment, what would you tell them to convince them to look at Klipsch over other companies like Tannoy, Focal, B&W, Adam, etc.? That's a good question,
That is a great question.
Joshua Wilson. So I have a couple recommendations for customers and also dealers who are demonstrating product. Know your music. Know your music inside and out. And if you love your music, you've already heard it a lot of times on different systems, maybe your home system, a buddy system. You've heard it in various stores. It's a little difficult to, hear it in various stores right now. But if you know your music, maybe you have 3, 4 tracks that you know inside and out. That's absolutely a great tool for you. When it comes to demonstrating, if you know your music inside and out, like some of those tracks that I played for you guys, you know what should be happening when. You should be able to hear a detail or be able to place the musicians exactly where you know they should be. When you are comparing to other brands, Klipsch, I've often described it as the orange. There are a lot of apples out there, direct radiating loudspeakers, for example. There are planar speakers out there too, but the direct radiating loudspeakers out there, typical a dome cone configuration, have a very similar approach to sound. And then the horn-loaded approach that Klipsch uses is very different. So you got your apples, but here you have your orange. And the A-B comparison, you will always hear a difference. You will hear a difference. You don't have to be an expert in audio. You will hear that pretty immediate difference between Klipsch and another brand. And the bottom line is you should choose what you like. The opinion of somebody is not nearly as important as what your own ears hear and appreciate. So with Klipsch, I mean, our sound approach, the result of that has been described as we have a little bit more of an upfront sound. So if you go to a concert and you like to be near the stage, that is the sound that we deliver typically. A direct radiating loudspeaker in general will set you back a little bit. And the reason for that is, direct radiating loudspeakers may allow sound to reflect a little more in your own room. So it'll give you a little bit more of a open, maybe reflective sound as well as the direct sound. I mean, that's just the nature of a wider dispersion approach. Where Klipsch, with the controlled directivity, we're really shooting for about a 90-degree window of dispersion horizontally. And the Klipsch speakers, technically, if you want to set up a good soundstage, you will toe them in a little bit so that combined pattern arrives to the primary listening position and really creates a holographic soundstage. I mean, a track that some of you, if you want to write it down real quick, this is a good soundstage test track. It's by Paramore. The name of the track is called Misguided Ghosts. And I use it as a setup track, when we're doing a show. But Haley Williams, she'll be right in the middle, and then a couple guitarists each on a stool playing their acoustic guitars, and it just really sets it up nicely. If you know your music, like I know that track, you know exactly what that should sound like and how to get it set up. But use a track like that, and when you're comparing the different speakers, which one delivers that real presence of the musicians. That is what we go for with a Klipsch demonstration. We want you to feel the presence, literally them being in front of you and you being pretty close to their performance, that upfront stage sound. So that's an example. And then, I choose all kinds of music. I'm not somebody who, I only play this type. I love jazz. I love rock. I love electronic. I'm all over the map. I do try to demonstrate tracks where there are a few musicians do that first. Stanton Moore, the album Conversations, excellent album. It's a trio. The drummer's right in the middle. Stand-up bass is just to the left, and a wonderfully recorded piano on the right. And they sound like real instruments. It's a fantastic recording from Stanton Moore. And then, of course, once we get that right, then you put on the classical. If you want to do a powerful and dynamic classical track, that's very important. Rimsky-Korsakov from The Snow Maiden, Dance of the Tumblers, great track. It's about 3, not quite 4 minutes. It's classical music for people who don't like classical music. I mean, you will impress just about anybody when you show an entire symphony delivering a very dynamic, exciting performance. And it's not just loud. I'm not talking loud. I'm talking dynamic, where it gets powerful, it gets quiet. You hear the little tambourine, triangle details, and then it gets powerful again. So it's like, put in the bars like if you're going on a roller coaster ride, because that's what that track is. It's a lot of fun. You should have fun listening to this music. And so when you're doing the comparisons, know your music. And then you'll have your comfort level of what you should be hearing. And, you won't get overwhelmed by maybe some of the technical jargon and things like that. But of course, their setup should be good, where it should replicate what you have in the house. It shouldn't be full of acoustic treatment, although some, stores have that, and that I understand that. That's good. But, a typical home environment, I mean, my room here, it's a little bit reflective. Of course, it's got some absorptive materials too. It's medium in reflectivity. And every time I sold a pair of Fortes, for example, in Florida, I always told the customer, these will sound better in your home. I guarantee it. Or just bring them back. Not one time did anybody bring them back. Not one time. In fact, they just came in for more music. They're like, okay, what else you got? I want to hear this on the Fortes. I'm like, absolutely. So pretty soon you're just talking about music. And when you go into a music store, let the guy demonstrate the stuff he knows, but then you should take your own music.
I've
Why
always,
would you?
I've always encouraged that. I think one of the great spirits of being able to say what you said earlier is, if you've got a tune that really rocks out and you really want it to be your moment where it moves you, that's always the important part. My litmus test, if I may, is, does the song have the ability to make you cry when you're listening to it on the right piece of equipment? If it has moved you in such a way that you're kind of going, oh, boom, you go back into a little place in time, you generally find yourself wanting to know more, and that speaker and the matched equipment will definitely play a role in that. Any other questions that are coming down your pipeline to share?
Well, one of them is it's almost like a layup. I'm chuckling at it. It's what How do you describe Klipsch in 3 words? And then what was your first goosebumps moment listening to Klipsch? Another question, where do you see the Klipsch brand and technology in the next 20 years? So I'll just start with the 3 words. It's interesting. We did a consumer research study many years ago with Klipsch owners, what words describe the Klipsch sound. So these are not my words. These are coming from a database of our customers. Power, detail, you get that right, emotion. So what you just said, Bess, is spot on. If you get all this right, the sound stage, the dynamics, the detail, you have no choice but to become emotionally involved in the experience. And with the lights off, and if it's a piece of music you really love and care about, you will get emotional if you truly love music. I've done a few demos where I really just keep my eye on the listener. I listen, just to make sure everything's right. We've all heard these tracks 1,000 times, but it's more entertaining for me to watch the customer, and that customer could be an international distributor, could be a VIP coming through the building. It could be a customer who just came by the Klipsch offices and wants to hear some product. Doesn't matter. They're all customers, in my opinion. Watching their face. And, sometimes they might even go, oh, that's a little loud, so you gotta be sensitive to the taste of the customer. and adjust accordingly. And then maybe if this music didn't do it for them, what will do it for them? But then often I do see it's kind of that grin. They can't erase it. It's like plastered on their face. I've had some people tear up because of the classical music. Sometimes classical can really evoke emotion, but the emotion part is, this is the business we're in. We're an emotional business. I mean, think about the billions that people spend going to concerts. Music. It's not going to go out of style. The question was, what will we be doing in 20 years? Hopefully we're going to still be delivering power, detail, and emotion for new generations. I mean, that's another generation, 20 years. And, we have to do this. We have to keep the excitement going. And new technologies are going to come along, and I would call them enabling technologies. Technologies that make it easier to enjoy your music. I hope it keeps getting easier and more accessible and all that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, hopefully our products are maybe that last link to your ears, and we have to maintain and evolve and improve the experience, and make it more attainable too. I mean, in these times, we're very, very cognizant and working toward making it more attainable, affordable, making Klipsch performance available to many more people. We have the high end. You guys sell the high end for sure. But, this groove is an example of getting that Klipsch quality into the hands of more people. Boys and girls, men and women. My daughters love it, and they're obsessed with music, so they're often asking, okay, can I test this? What can I take to my bedroom, to use? How can I, my buddies at Qobuz, they hooked us up with another account because they were all over my Qobuz account, and I couldn't even play my own music because the girls were just hijacking it. So now they got their own, so yeah, they got a family plan, thank God.
Yeah,
No.
well, that's always important when that happens. I mean, I'm certainly enjoying Qobuz as a dealer, as part of Qobuz Society, and being able to demo real high resolution tracks for everybody in our showroom, or when we were still open at the time, and we will be. So watch out for that.
Yeah.
Is the ability to really play some tracks that are just earth shattering, groundbreaking, tear jerking. Things that you didn't think you could find in that manner and form. It's a great library manager. It's certainly helpful for us as a tool. But again, going back to the heart of our conversation, while we have a few more minutes here, is Klipsch, Klipsch, Klipsch. The latest generation speaker designs. Just earlier this year, we had a chance to listen to the latest generation Cornwall. There was, of course, the Heresy that sprang out of the pipeline, and I have a story to share on that, and that is your rep team came over and had the Cornwalls on display, and my first reaction is, oh dear, it's a big speaker, because I'm an urban living guy. I mean, somebody in our relationship wants it the size of a golf ball, but that's another story. The chance to hear the Cornwalls in their latest iteration was ground shaking. I used to think that the Cornwalls had enough horsepower under the hood because of its efficiency to do what it needed to do to play even the smallest tone of music. But with the increase in the porting with the Tractix drivers, horns in the back, there was this instantaneous ooh la la. There was this true goosebumping that I have not felt in a long, long time. So tell me what was going on there in the creation of that.
So Roy has been able to implement some crossover approach that actually Paul Klipsch always wanted, steep slope crossover, where he's really carefully blending the output, the effective output range of each driver, and then because the control directivity, really making sure it's a precision transition where they don't interfere. I mean, they really operate optimally in their range, and then it's a nice smooth handoff, and that's part of it. The other part is what I mentioned earlier, this new phase plug on the high frequency driver, The 15-inch is the K33. It's the same 15-inch as the La Scala and the Klipsch horn. So it's the same driver just being utilized in a teal small, alignment. And what's interesting about teal small, Paul knew Mr. Small, the brilliant engineer who came up with the parameters for the driver suspensions and the ability to really refine the designs of base alignments. And that was decades ago. And the Cornwall was really one of the first, it was the first to implement that approach with base reflex alignment, where the Heresy remained an infinite baffle, well, really a sealed, acoustic suspension design. And Paul always wanted to apply teal small, a base alignment to the Heresy. And now only in the 4th generation do we do that, right? So the Heresy now is it's a base alignment. It's got the port on the back of the enclosure. But the Cornwall and the Heresy have had a loyal following for decades. And what you heard in the Cornwall, I would describe as, and as this evolution continues with the Heritage line, I would describe it as a more effortless approach. Effortless sound, getting you closer to the music, that much closer, where, a good audio system, you kind of notice it immediately, like it grabs a hold of you. You're like, well, it's almost like an analogy for me would be driving a car, perhaps a German car, a driver's car, if you will. And some people might be intimidated by, oh, this is a high performance car. I don't know if I can handle this car. And what's interesting about the analogy to audio is that when you drive a really high performance car, it's disarming. When you get into it, you're so comfortable and it shifts so nicely and it handles so great that you're no longer worried about, this is not hard to drive. This is easier to drive. This is a kind of an extension of my body. Well, with audio, a great system should be like, oh, I'm not really scrutinizing anymore. I'm in the music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for home theater too, by the way. I believe that with a great setup for multi-channel for home theater, like an Atmos system. I mean, it should be not where, oh, I don't know, this isn't, oh my gosh, I'm in the movie. I am totally immersed. So it's similar. And so with the Heritage line, I mean, I'm happy to say that, when we do these various shows, Rocky Mountain Eye Fest, where you and I connected, it had been a long time, like mid-90s since we had K-horns at a CES, and I was able to demonstrate them, and then you came in and sitting people down, and industry veterans who hadn't heard Klipsch horns for decades or ever. And, just a final comment about Klipsch horns and the Heritage line is this is living audio history. We recently had a customer in Singapore who has been waiting for their Klipsch horns, and they, we had a little bit of delay in production, and then they started up again. And this customer's like, can you just send me pictures? Can we see what's going on? And we did a little video just to let them know they're being crafted for you now. You're going to get them soon. But a comment I made was, you now own a piece of audio history, living hi-fi history. The hi-fi industry, born here in America. This is just like jazz, right? And to have a piece of living audio history, that's what the Heritage line is. And it's not just living, but it's evolving, it's growing, it's improving, it's getting better, just like any of us. I mean, we're veterans, right? But we tell each other, hey, I'm getting better, I'm getting smarter, I'm learning more, still learning at this age, always want to learn, stay young, keep learning, keep listening. But it's the passion in our company does run deep, and it's evident with you guys and all of our key dealers, distributors, our partners in this industry. It's a wonderful family in the audio industry. Passion, it just runs deep. It has to. I mean, you can't be in this industry, in my opinion, long term without a given level of passion. And it's pretty evident when you meet people, sometimes people for the first time who've been in the business as long or longer than we have, and you can just see it. You just start talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our customers. I'm often humbled when I'm talking to our customers directly, and I hear what equipment they have and their setups, and I'm like, wow, you know, uh,
I'm the same way too. When
you know.
I get pictures of someone's K horns in a, with a window vista of like the mountains and whatnot as the backdrop, and they're able to listen to some serious rock and roll on it and blast the daylights out of it, or listen to it cleanly with music of classical and so forth. It's just it's always good to know that a customer who buys a Klipsch product from Music Direct or musicdirect.com or any of the brand partners that Klipsch has for its Heritage Series, you're really breaking ground and opening the door to a whole new listening experience once you get it.